The sky is bleeding. The world is bending. And in the center, a silent scream, frozen, eternal, vibrating through time. This isn't just a painting. It's the sound of anxiety before it had a name. And what makes it even more terrifying is how much of ourselves we still see in it. Today, we uncover the secret behind one of the most haunting images ever created, and why its horror feels so real, so human, so unshakable. Edvard Munch's The Scream, 1893, depicts a lone figure on a bridge beneath a blood-red sky. The clouds hang like torn shreds of fire, painted in streaks of orange and red that vibrate with unease. At first glance, it might look like a sunset over the Oslo fjord, but Munch insisted it was something more ominous. In his diary, he described walking at dusk when the sky turned as red as blood, and he sensed an infinite scream passing through nature. This isn't a peaceful twilight. It's as if the air itself is shrieking in agony. Munch even originally exhibited the work with the title The Scream of Nature, making it clear that the horrific cry comes not from the painting's figure, but from the world around them. Imagine standing there. The sky above you bleeds orange and crimson. The landscape ripples as if convulsing. Munch experienced a moment where sound and color blurred, a kind of synesthesia where he could hear the piercing redness of the sunset. He later wrote, "I painted the clouds as actual blood. The color shrieked." In The Scream, Munch found a way to paint a sound, that unsettling hum of nature screaming. The effect is that the sky itself becomes a character, a molten scream slicing through the atmosphere. And caught in that fiery sky is the echo of something deeply human. The feeling that the world around you is suddenly not still, not safe, but alive with unseen terror. At the center of it all stands the painting's mysterious figure, hands clamped over its ears. The mouth is gaping, open in a round, soundless O. But here's the twist. This figure isn't making the sound. It's trying to shut it out. The scream is external, a tidal wave of anxiety emanating from the environment. Munch's genius was to show a scream through nature itself, channeling an inner terror into the very sky. In that moment, he froze on canvas. The world is the one screaming, and the figure can only listen, helpless. It's a visual depiction of something we don't just see, we feel it. As if that crimson sky were a scream reverberating inside our own skull. Now focus on the face of the screamer. It's barely a face at all, more like a pale skull or a ghostly mask. The head is elongated and hairless, the chin tapering, the eyes wide and circular, the mouth stretches into an oval void, frozen in a horrified wail. The figure's features are so simplified, they're almost inhuman. No eyebrows, no hair, no gender, no identity. It looks alien, disconnected, and yet, gazing at that twisted, almost featureless face, we feel an unsettling familiarity. How can something so abstract, a genderless, androgynous creature with a skull-like head, feel like us? That is Munch's dark genius. He didn't paint a portrait of a person, he painted a feeling. By stripping away identity and detail, he created a universal mirror. The figure could be anyone. It could be me. It could be you. We recognize that expression not as someone else's face, but as an emotion we've all felt. The hollowness of the eyes and the gaping mouth tap directly into primal fear. Munch once said his goal was the study of the soul, that is to say, the study of my own self. In The Scream, he offers us not a literal human, but the embodiment of inner turmoil. This is why that faceless figure feels so familiar. It is us, whenever we're overwhelmed by terror or despair. It's humanity stripped to its rawest emotional nerve. Look at how the figure's hands press against the sides of its head. Are they covering its ears? Many believe so, that the person isn't screaming, but hearing a scream, trying in vain to block it out. The face is contorted in a silent O. as if the sound is internal, echoing in the mind. It's as if the figure has become a living amplifier of the world's pain. By making the face so mask-like and abstract, Munch invites us to project our own feelings onto it. We don't see a Norwegian man or woman on that bridge in 1893. We see the shape of anxiety itself. The Scream's face isn't human, and that's exactly why it feels so human to us. It's an emotional cipher, an empty vessel we fill with our own dread. Munch may have drawn inspiration from beyond the human realm for this ghastly face. Some art historians have noted a resemblance to a Peruvian mummy displayed in Paris around that time, a corpse frozen in a scream, hands cupping its face. Whether or not a literal mummy influenced him, the effect is the same. The figure in the Scream is like a living dead, a spirit, or a memory of anguish incarnate. It's not bound by age, gender, or time. Standing on that bridge, it becomes a symbol, a ghost of emotion that anyone, anywhere can recognize. Beneath the figure's feet lies a wooden boardwalk, the bridge. Notice how straight and solid it is, cutting across the painting with sharp perspective lines. That railing is perhaps the only stable thing in this world, a refuge of straight geometry amid chaos. In fact, two small figures in the distance stand upon that bridge, upright and oblivious, still part of normal reality. They remain behind the protagonist, almost blending into the background. They're grounded on solid land, but our central figure has stepped away from that ordinary world and into a personal nightmare. Everywhere beyond the bridge, reality melts. Look at the water and hills behind the Screamer. They undulate in rolling, wave-like curves, as if the ground is liquefying. The blue-black fjord and the shoreline swirl together with the sky in a whirlpool of colors. Even the figure's own form isn't spared. Its body and arms curve and twist in the same flowing rhythm as the background. Munch's brushstrokes are loose, almost frantic spirals of paint. The whole world in the painting seems to be heaving, contracting, screaming. Only the bridge and those distant figures remain rigid and straight. The contrast is jarring, and it perfectly captures what an attack of anxiety or terror feels like, while the rest of your perception warps uncontrollably into a nightmare. Munch's composition physically splits reality in two, the stable versus the surreal, and the Screamer stands right on that fault line. This was no artistic gimmick for Munch. It was autobiography. He experienced this collapse of reality firsthand. In that diary entry from January 1892, as he stood on that Eckeberg Hill, he said, "I stood there trembling with anxiety." Scholars today suggest he may have suffered a panic attack at that moment. The painting is what a panic attack feels like, the world losing its form, your senses overwhelmed by a flood of fear. Edvard Munch knew these feelings intimately. His life was marked by trauma and mental illness. From childhood, he was haunted by death and anxiety. His mother and his favorite sister died when he was a boy. Another sister was institutionalized for mental illness, and he grew up dreading that madness lurked in his own genes. "From my father, I inherited the seeds of madness," Munch wrote. "The angels of fear, sorrow, and death stood by my side since the day I was born." When you know this, the painting's raw panic makes even more sense. The Scream wasn't a pose or a fantasy. It was Munch's own terror laid bare on cardboard. He later admitted that during the years he painted the Scream, "I was almost mad, stretched to the limit. Nature was screaming in my blood." Munch poured his darkest, most chaotic feelings into those swirling clouds and that ghoulish face. In fact, the image of the Scream obsessed him so deeply that he couldn't exorcise it with just one painting. Between 1893 and 1910, he created 4 versions of the Scream, 2 in paint, 2 in pastel, and even a lithograph for prints. He returned to that painting again and again, as if one canvas alone could not contain the enormity of that anxiety. Every version shows the same bridge, the same blood-red sky, the same agonized figure, a nightmare Munch kept reliving, etched in oil, pastel, and ink. Reality had cracked for him on that bridge in Oslo. and through his art, he captured that crack forever. It's hard to overstate how radical this painting was in 1893. This was the fin de siècle, the end of the 19th century, a time when the foundations of psychology were only just being laid. Sigmund Freud was in Vienna, formulating theories about hysteria and the unconscious mind. Others were writing about the inner workings of the psyche in medical journals. But Edvard Munch did something unprecedented. He painted the inside of a mind. While most artists of his era were focused on the external world, pretty landscapes, society scenes, or at most the gentle impression of a moment, Munch turned his canvas into a psychological theater. When The Scream was first exhibited, some critics and viewers were horrified or baffled. One contemporary critic wrote that Munch, with ruthless contempt for form, clarity, elegance, wholeness, and realism, paints with intuitive strength the most subtle visions of the soul. In other words, Munch willingly broke the rules of form and beauty to capture something deeper, the soul's scream. This canvas tore open a portal in art. It marked the birth of what we now call Expressionism, years before that movement had a name. The Scream is often cited as a foundational work of modern art because it proved that the inner world of feelings could be the subject of a painting as much as a landscape or a portrait. In fact, it's both: a landscape of a mind in torment, a portrait of existential dread. Munch's work became a key inspiration for the expressionist artists of the early 20th century, who also distorted form and color to convey emotion. But even beyond art movements, The Scream opened a door that has never closed. It gave permission to portray anxiety, despair, and raw subjectivity openly. At the time Munch painted The Scream, terms like anxiety disorder or panic attack didn't exist in everyday language. Society had no clear words for these psychological horrors. They spoke of melancholia or nerves in vague terms. Munch gave that nebulous suffering a vivid image years before our culture learned the vocabulary for it. It truly was the birth of psychological art, a painting that captured a psychic scream in an age when such things were only just beginning to be understood. Fast forward to today, and The Scream is everywhere. That ghostly face has been plastered on t-shirts and coffee mugs, parodied in cartoons, turned into an emoji. The Scream emoji on our phones is a clear homage. It's one of the most famous images on the planet, as instantly recognizable as the Mona Lisa or Mickey Mouse. You might think that seeing it so often in so many trivial contexts would dilute its power. Why hasn't it lost its power? Because the emotion it conveys is timeless and universal. As art historian Martha Tedeschi observed, some rare artworks communicate a specific meaning almost immediately to almost every viewer. And The Scream is exactly that. Its meaning doesn't need explanation. We feel it instantly in our nerves. The painting may be over 130 years old, but the horror it portrays is something we all know in our own lives. We've all had that moment when the inner noise becomes deafening, when the world around us suddenly tilts and warps under the weight of our anxiety. That moment when you want to throw your hands to your ears like the figure in the painting, when you feel a silent scream welling up inside. The Scream strikes a nerve because it depicts that exact human experience. Munch's haunted figure is covering its ears, not mouth, because sometimes the world is just too loud, or our own thoughts are. It was never just paint, it was pain. A scream captured on a canvas at a time when no one talked about such things, when society had no name for panic or anxiety, or the dread of existential terror. Munch gave form to the nameless dread, a scream caught in a century that didn't yet have the words for fear, for madness, for the anxiety that eats at the soul. Now we do have those words. We talk about mental health, about anxiety and trauma. We have diagnoses and definitions. But the painting still says it better. In that single image, the sky, the figure, the endless silent wail, lies a truth we can all recognize, however unsettling it may be. Edvard Munch's The Scream reaches out from the canvas like a whispered confession of the darkest emotion, one that echoes in each of us. And once you've heard that silent scream, You feel it resonate forever. Can you hear it? Listen closely. The sky is still screaming.